Well, hello and welcome to Midweek Online. My name is Josh and I'm the youth pastor here at Lifepointe Church. It's so good to see you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get right into the message, and I'm going to start with a story that I think I've told before. When I was at Evangel my junior year, I decided I was going to save some money and go back home, go to a community college. I had to transfer out of Evangel, and then I transferred back in like a semester later. But I had to transfer in as a brand new student, even though I already had student accounts. I had exams and immunizations and different things that I had already done at Evangel. They weren't recognizing it, so I had to go through the process again as if I was a brand new student. It got to the point that the morning I left for Evangel, I was faxing over immunization shots and different things like that to even get ready for the semester. I didn't have a dorm assignment or anything like that until about 20 minutes before the office closed the day before classes started. It was insane. And I remember driving. It was a 7-hour drive. I remember driving to Missouri, not knowing if I would have a place to stay that night, not knowing if I would be ready for classes the next day. It was insane. And I remember needing a miracle in that moment. A couple of years ago, just even more recently, my wife lost her hydro flask, and she had it in a bunch of different countries, so she had all these really cool stickers. It was really nostalgic for her, and she didn't want to lose it. So we went back to the place that she thought she lost it. We couldn't find it at all. And then we were driving home, defeated, neglected. Like, it was so bad. It was just, the feeling was terrible. And our car headlight shined as we were turning, and her hydro flask was literally next to one of the mailboxes at some random person's house. It was insane. I think that sometimes we need miracles, and we look for miracles, and they can be big, they can be small, but they're crucial in our life. They're crucial for believers, for people who have trusted in Jesus to build their faith, but it's also for the unbeliever, for the people who don't have a relationship with Jesus, to be able to experience that he actually cares. I want to read why they're so important, especially when it comes to relating to unbelievers and people who don't have a relationship with Jesus. If you're going fishing, miracles are an important aspect of witnessing and relating who Jesus is to other people. I want to read in John chapter 6. This is what it says. It says, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed in healing the sick. Then Jesus went up to the mountainside and sat with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for those people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another one of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down, about 5,000 men. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed it to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them, and they filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. There's 3 things that I think are so important and so key in understanding why miracles are important in the life of a believer and the life of somebody who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus. And that is this. The first is that miracles will actually make you pause, right? That's the whole point of a miracle in the first place. You see, in Mark, the disciples were the one who raised the issue of the crowd being fed. See, there were a lot of people who were hungry and they didn't know what to do. Philip could not even compute the amount it would take to feed everybody. But Andrew tried to solve the problem in a much different way. He went out and he found this small meal that he could distribute. Neither one of these guys had the answers, right? If anybody was looking at this situation, they totally would have seen that it was a failure from the jump. You see, miracles are designed to function in impossible circumstances. That's the whole point. But when you're forced to rely on a miracle, know that that is why you're facing something so daunting in the first place. I think so much of the reason why we don't expect and don't look for miracles is because we don't even see the possibility for one, because the thing that we're looking at seems so crazy. It seems so daunting. It seems so big. You see, instead we react like Philip, who's just trying to compute everything and can't seem to even come to the realization that it can even be done. Or we're like Andrew, and we're constantly working and trying to make this thing work, and it's not gonna work, right? But I think that when we see these times when we're in that moment of pausing because we need a miracle, we have to know that that's the whole reason. Jesus wasn't fazed. Notice that in this story, Jesus wasn't fazed at all. As a matter of fact, he told the disciples to get people ready for a meal, not just a snack, but a meal. See, so we have to pause, we have to assess, and then we have to rely on God to come through. The second thing is that miracles are made for people, right? There's a news flash. I don't know if you know this. Jesus doesn't need miracles to validate who he is. Jesus didn't need miracles to become more God or to become more powerful. Through miracles, he's allowed influence and authority with people. That's the point. It's so that people would come to know who Jesus is. You see, as people experience a miracle, their faith is built up. It doesn't matter if you're a believer or you don't have a relationship with Jesus at all. They're the proof that God sees us, he loves us, and he cares about us. You see, God's not some self-righteous show-off who just wants to do things to pump his own ego. You see, if he were, when you read this story and continue to verse 15, the people Jesus knew were going to make him the king if they found out what he had done. So he got out of there as quickly as he could. Jesus sent his followers to perform the miracles, to be a part of that, both here in a couple of other stories in the Gospels, but then also in the book of Acts. When you look at the church of Acts and how they functioned through the power of the Holy Spirit, you see, through ordinary people, God would do incredible things and more people would come to know who Jesus is. I liken it to this. If I buy flowers for my wife, I don't care about flowers. I really don't. I think most of them are going to die in about a day or two. I really don't care to spend the money on it, whatever. I don't even really think they're all that pretty. I don't know. Anyway, I don't care that much. But what I do care is about how my wife feels. My wife loves them. She thinks they're pretty. She loves being able to take care of them. She loves being able to look at them. And that for me is enough to go get flowers for her. So it's the same way with miracles. Jesus doesn't need them to validate who he is or to be more of who he is. But what it is it allows for an introduction to him or a reintroduction to him. See, miracles make Jesus the point. That's really the last thing that I want to leave you with. Because I think naturally we want to take credit for the things that we do, not knowing that it's Jesus who needs the credit when it comes to something miraculous happening in our life. The whole purpose of a miracle is that so we can experience a sign or a mark of the authenticity of Jesus and his message. Miracles honor Christ, they express his love to people, and they signify a call to salvation, to actually put their trust in Jesus. Miracles are still expected, and they're carried out through the people of God so that they would connect and experience with God that wants a God that wants to be the center of their life. They're often found the foundation for the most genuine encounters with the most gloomy people and the most great God. I think the last thing that I want to leave you with is this, is that, as they picked up the leftovers, Jesus instructed all of the disciples to gather everything so that nothing would be lost. See, in the same way that Jesus cared about the perishing food not going bad, he cares about people. He cares about you enough that he wants to still be active and moving and do incredible things in your life. Miracles can sometimes provide the best soil to scatter seeds. This is why Jesus didn't make food fall out of the sky like he did in Exodus. when he was providing for the Israelites. See, he wanted the disciples to be activated in dispersing the food and serving other people. I think the other thing is asking, how can God use you and use me as his hands and feet to do the miracles that he's wanting to do in the lives of other people so that people would come to know him in a greater way? See, we have an opportunity to partner with the Holy Spirit. We have an opportunity to carry out some of these amazing things that God is wanting to do so that other people can come to know Christ and so that we can have our faith built up as believers ourselves. This is why miracles are important when it comes to going fishing. This is why it's important for somebody who doesn't have a relationship to know that Jesus cares about them, to know that he sees them, and to know that he's willing to work in their life. And thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited to be able to see you again soon, whether that be in person or right here online again next week. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed weekend.